Another Sunday and another Nebraska loss. I am Mike Schaefer, and this is the Husker 24/7 Sunday side session. And this week, our guest, former Nebraska linebacker, not current Nebraska linebacker. You can't hold anything against him right now. Corey McKeon.
What's up, Shave?
Corey, how we doing?
I don't know. I think I have like one, maybe two series left in me. As long as you're going to come visit me at the hospital, buddy, afterwards. I could try and go out and play a few more downs. I don't know if it'd be good or bad, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
Can you, do you think you can hold up in coverage against Georgia Southern? Because that seemed to be an issue for about everybody last night.
One or two legs. I feel like maybe one. I couldn't even understand. I'm still baffled. Like before we started this, I was already ready to just cry and complain to you, but I don't get it. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you've got to think that we have the athletes, but we just don't. It's strange. It's hard to watch.
We will we'll try to provide some level of therapy for those that are listening or watching in, and see if we can tackle some of the we're going to provide therapy for Corey. We'll try to tackle some of the questions and, what happened in the game, what happens next, all of that. And I feel like I have to start here because walking back into the stadium before the game started, I kind of just had this bad feeling. I don't know why. I joked that it was because I saw that Georgia Southern had brought their live eagle mascot to the game.
Oh,
and that just seems, that seems like a level of badass, much more than their inflatable eagle that was dancing on the sidelines. So I thought it was going to be like one of those Nebraska night games against Fresno State where it's uncomfortable for way too long, but the Huskers end up pulling it out. And really, by the end of the first quarter, my mind immediately and somewhat unfortunately for those who want to repress these memories, and unfortunately they're some of your strongest, it went immediately to Ball State. A game that, Nebraska was fortunate to get out with a win in 2007, a MAC team that came in and had no fear of Memorial Stadium or Nebraska or any of it. And they came to play that day. And I think Clay Helton's Georgia Southern Eagles last night, they came to play. At no point did they seem like a team that weren't confident. I mean, it felt like they were going to make plays. I mean, I don't think Kyle Van Treese is a future NFL quarterback, but he made some throws last night.
Maybe now. If you play Nebraska every week, he may be.
The running joke is that Nebraska ends up more on the highlights and NFL draft coverage than they do the name selection.
Drafter, yeah.
But I mean, he had some great throws last night. Their wide receivers went out and made plays. I mean, even on that last drive, you had that 27-yard throw down the sideline where he throws it out there and the guy just lays out and makes a hauling catch along the side. I mean, they showed up and they made plays, and you could just tell they weren't at any point going to go away. And it was going to require Nebraska to rise up and defeat them. And they got a few stops, but it just felt like it never worked quite in sync. They couldn't get to a 10-point lead. They led only a couple times in the evening. And I don't know about you, Corey, and you said you were at a wedding last night, but when Nebraska's in that final drive on defense, I mean, what was your confidence level they were going to be able to get off the field? They got to a fourth down, but I'm curious, going into that, did you think they could get a stop at that point?
I didn't. I mean, once you get on your heels, it's over. And I felt it on a defense. And, fortunately for the defenses I played on, when I was feeling it, it was against top 10 ranked teams. Like you said, Ball State, you mentioned it. That was a great – I do this write-up from Nebraska Greats Foundation, and I put a gambling twist on it before every game. And all I said this week was, I don't care what the score is. I'm fine with you winning by 14 in a game where you don't flash, you're very consistent, you're in your base defense. Yeah, give up yards, don't give up too many points. Get out of the W and look forward to the next game. For anyone that thinks in any type of sports type situation, when you're sitting there and you've got a small-time team and you're looking ahead to next week to one of your greatest rivals and one of the greatest rivalries in all of college football in Oklahoma, we did it all the time. But we also had the discipline to kind of get it done. That Ball State one was a little scary. They ended up being a little bit better than we thought they were. But we were able to get that W, and we probably didn't deserve that W. Looking forward to the next week. But this day and age, you saw what happened in college football yesterday. I didn't even know if it was the Jamesons, if I was reading the scores right, bud. I didn't know. And I'm sitting there thinking, maybe we're not the only ones, but it feels like we have been the only one for the last 5 years or so. If you could add up that timeline of that staff. But I really felt at the end of that game, if we would have just come out of that game with a win and competed next week, I would have had no problem with that game. I know what the players' mentality is. Let's get out of here safe. Let's get going, and then let's win next week. But we didn't win, so there is no next week. So it's irrelevant now. And the biggest just motivation that you could take in games like that, and what I looked at it as, Bo Rude, Steve Octavian, my fellow linebacker, Stu Bradley, we always go, hey, baby, this is a stat game. We're going to give our all. We're going to look great on film. We're going to grade out well. I'm going to come out of that baby with 15 tackles, and I may be getting player of the week, because that's what you want to do against teams like that. You want to pad your stats. It just feels like we don't have any kind of motivation or mentality anywhere near anything like that. So they're coming out, they're just like, oh, man, night game. They're still going to wake us up at 7 a.m. I got to get treatment twice. It's going to be a long day. Man, those games I always look forward to. Get me out there against weaker teams so I can hit, so I can have some fun. Maybe get out in the halfway through the third quarter, kick my feet up, look at the co-eds. It just that nothing on that mentality on the Nebraska side made sense to me yesterday. And I did go back and rewatch it this morning because I knew we were chatting, and it was hard to stomach. It was hard to watch.
Yeah,
and I was sober this time.
I'm curious. So, I mean, obviously you played a lot of football in your life. You were at Nebraska. You played in big games. You played in small games. You played with great teams, and you played with teams that felt like they left something out there and could have gotten more from it. How much, when you're a defensive player, is just confidence in not just what you can do, but the other guys around you? Because it does not feel like this group at any point, whether it was Northwestern, whether it was North Dakota, now Georgia Southern, like it does not feel like there's a lot of confidence when they're on the defensive side of the ball. Instead, it kind of feels like, well, if we can just kind of survive, we'll get the ball back, and then we'll get a break until we got to do it again. And it just, I don't know. I mean, it reminds me in some ways of kind of the struggles they've had at times where it just feels like guys are looking around waiting for someone else to make a play.
Yeah, and you know this in your golf game, buddy. If you're not confident, it ain't happening. It's the same.
I'm never confident, and that might explain the triple-digit scores. But
that's right. Hey, got to pump. It's good for the handicap. But you know what? You're 100% right. If it starts with knowledge and the game plan, because if you're at least in the right spot for the game plan, if you can sit there and look at your game plan defensively and say, this makes sense. I see how this could stop a defense. But if you sit there and go, this doesn't make any sense, I don't see how this could stop a defense, you're done from the get-go. And as a defensive coordinator, as a defensive coach, you kind of want to have one of two players. You want to have a super cerebral, smart player, or you want them dumb as rocks, because then they'll at least line up in the right spot, they'll do the right thing, and they just one-track mind. But it seems like on our defense, everyone's going like this and looking around. And when that's the case, it means they don't know the answer. When we were losing in our coverage, we had a lot of smart players on our defense when I was playing. Courtney Grigsby, super smart. Bo Rude, super smart. Jay Moore, Adam Carricker. These guys knew the game plan. They could play D-line, middle linebacker, safety. They could do it all. But you get one guy in there that doesn't know what they're doing, and you're done. You saw it against Northwestern in the opener in Dublin, that broken coverage where the guy streaked untouched, boom, right into his hands. Those are mental errors. Mental errors are unacceptable in college football, and the good coaches and the bad coaches now can even exploit that right out the gate. So you're not lined up right, you got the wrong coverage, you're rolling the wrong play, boom, it's a touchdown. There's no, thank goodness, it's only a 3-yard gain. That's 6 points now. And you see it happen to us. We do it to teams too. I mean, with our offense, we've got a lot of motion, a lot of moving parts, and a quarterback that's really playing at a high level. So we exploit people doing that. You saw it up and down the field yesterday. But when you give it up, there's no matter how good your offense is if your defense doesn't stop anybody. you keep bringing up Ball State, and for Ball State, I mean, they came out and they had a good quarterback. He was tough. We didn't treat him with the right respect out the gate. Looking forward to USC, I think, was the next week. I feel like this is what happened to our team, but you can't take this as a one-off situation because it's happened for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you're confused because you're looking at some of our talents. I went to practice and I sat there and I go, man, I'm really impressed by Grimes. I was impressed by Manning. I was impressed by Ramir Johnson. Have you seen any of those guys play?
Manning was in yesterday a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, Palmer, I've been very pleasantly surprised with, but I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't feel like one way or the other. It just feels like 100% cloudy and confusion. And you can't win football games.
Yeah. One of the things, I mean, obviously last year they had their super senior defense. You had guys like Ben Stilley and Deontay Williams, Markel Dismuke, JoJo Doman. They're all able to play another year.
Studs.
Because of that, the COVID situation. So you had to replace a fair amount of just reps and leadership. But at least from my untrained eyes, the lack of those two safeties feels like it has trickled down throughout the entire defense. The front seven is struggling in a variety of ways and reasons, but the communication doesn't seem like it's as strong because so often you watch after a play, after a completion, and it's like you said, I mean, these guys are sort of like pointing and it's like they don't know on each given play who has what and whose job is to be where. And it just feels like it's a recipe for disaster. And it struck last night.
The first recipe to disaster is the 3-4. You run the 3-4 if you're Bill Belichick. You run the 3-4 if you've got a massive amount of talent at your ends and a massive amount of talent at your safeties. Because then with your safeties, you could bring down a strong safety in the box, stop the run immediately. And then if that safety has the ability to play the cover 3, come down the cover 3, be able to maneuver around in different coverages, your defense completely changes. There is nothing in my mind that makes me think our ends, and I'm just not piling on them, but there is nothing in my mind that thinks that they should be a two-way player. And what I mean by that is rushing the passer and then being able to play the run and drop back. Caleb Tanner has no business rushing a quarterback on an offensive tackle. Nelson's a stud. Let him put his hand in the ground and be a monster. I'm really a believer in this is your job. You do it well. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. That's his job. He's going to do his job and do it well. But we're getting in situations where we're seeing these guys all over the field, and I'm sitting there going, is that where that guy should be? You know, I don't think that's the answer for the talent that we have. And, you know, Cosgrove for all the can we cuss on this, buddy? I don't even know. Can we for all the crap that he got, right, yeah. He knew the ability to say, we have a really good defensive line and we could play the under front because we had Jay Moore, we had Carricker, we had Ola, we had a bunch of good players with their hands in the dirt. And then he says, well, we've got decent linebackers too, so that'll free these guys up to go make plays. And that's where we were successful. And then we had a strong safety in the Bullocks that could play really good football. But he also had the frame of mind to switch it to the over next year when our D-line, my senior year, when our D-line wasn't very strong. And we just didn't have that ability to cover up our linebackers anymore. Mm-hmm. So you got to have kind of some self-awareness, self-game planning almost to sit there and go, is this defense right for the people we have, or are we just too far down it? This is my defense. I'm going to keep it. Put your players in the position to win the game. And do you feel like we've put our players in positions to win games this year?
No, I don't. And they haven't for several years. I am not like, I got to be careful because I'm no expert when it comes to scheming or anything like that. But
people would agree with you that say that I'm not either. So,
well, you at least have the repetitions of someone who's played at the college level. So, and the baseline understanding of what's supposed to happen. I simply don't understand what you attempt to achieve by being as passive as Nebraska has been for the last 2 years. I sort of get if you believe that you have to play a complementary level of football where you're trying to keep points relatively low. But at the same time, when all you do is give up field position, even if you stop a team, but they go and they drive, 8 plays, 45 yards, they have to punt, and your offense is now pinned inside the 5-yard line, and they took 3-4 minutes off the clock. Like, it always feels to me the bend don't break mentality cheats you at the end of the game, because you're either on the field a lot more, or it sort of creates this mindset that they got a first down, that's fine. They got a first down, that's fine. We'll stop them. They're in the red zone, that's fine. They're not going to get a touchdown. It always just feels like it moves the goalposts. Instead of the idea being, we got to get the hell off the field as quickly as we can, it becomes, well, if it's 5 minutes and they end up having to kick a field goal and they miss, we're fine. It just, I don't know. And I think once that mentality is seeped into Nebraska, and it's been there for about 3 years, if you look at the takeaway numbers, you look at the havoc numbers, they're out there. They're just not creating anything. It feels like it seeps into your mentality where
all it's of a sudden, baseball. You got 12 hits and 1 run.
Yeah, it's just it's not it just doesn't feel like it's a long-term sustainable thing. I just don't know any successful defenses where the whole goal is get as many yards as you want, but we'll try to keep you around 25, 26 points and we'll be fine.
Dude, I'm wearing my favorite snapback, my back-to-back national championship hat from the 90s, because we were talking about them last night. And the big thing, and we always look to the 90s and those teams, they were some of the best college football teams this world has ever seen with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And the mentality of those teams versus now, and even my era, we were a little bit more cutting edge. Callahan wanted to be creative and all that. The creativeness of Osborne and Charlie McBride was kill them, hurt them, destroy them, make them never want to come back to Memorial Stadium again. And that's how they practiced. That was their mentality day in and day out. And now it just feels like, if we said that to them, I'm going to get a fine. I'm going to get in trouble. Yeah. The Big Ten's going to be calling me. The NCAA is going to be calling me. Those teams were as great as they were because it was a no mercy mentality. And frankly, we didn't have that. We had this mentality of, we have a deep playbook. We've got talent. Let's mix it up and keep people off balance. On offense, we're going to do the same thing. They didn't need that. They just had this grit and this just badassness to them where they just said, I don't care. If you're lining up against me, you are going to go down. And in no way, shape, or form have we seen that in a very long time. And I look back to our era and the Callahan era, and everyone super disliked the Callahan era, before times got worse, right?
Right.
But Callahan kind of had that edge to him on the offensive side. Like, if I could run the ball and run the play, same play every single time and get 6 yards, I'm going to do it. And now there's just no patience. You have to have pizzazz. You have to line up, be better than the guy in front of you for 4 full quarters and get back to what Nebraska football does. I'm jealous of those 90s teams. I'm going to be honest with you. I look at them. I love watching their highlights. I love seeing those guys on the field because they just had more of a grit and mentality that we don't see a lot. You see it in Nick Saban teams. You see it in Dabo, in the Sweeney teams, in Clemson. Do we have it? Did you watch Texas, Alabama? Was there any question in your mind that Alabama wasn't going to go down and win that game? No. And you sit there and then Georgia Southern gets the ball against us and you go, oh man, should I start walking out now?
Right.
You don't want to have that mentality about your football team. And it's all here. It's all here. If I was mediocre to a little bit above average as a football player. And it was all because I had here. I wasn't super fast. I wasn't super strong, but I liked going out and playing football. I liked getting the chance to smoke someone, preferably when they weren't looking. But, those are the biggest hits. But it was fun for me. I enjoyed it. I wanted it. I wanted more of it. And now it just feels like, get me off the field. This is the offense's problem, is what I'm seeing. And you don't want that. At the end of the game, I want to be the guy stopping. I want to be the guy making the big play. And those guys are looking to the guys next to them going, hey, are you going to step up? No, you step up. And I don't see any of that.
Let's let's shift a little bit. In the 3 games, obviously, this season, all dramatically different stories, all sort of pointing to the same kind of thing. But who has impressed you so far this year? I mean, like, obviously, there's still 9 more games to be played. Nebraska, these games are going to happen whether fans are excited about them, whether Scott Frost is coaching them. And the thing is, and you get this, these 9 games matter. Whether you're a freshman, whether you're a senior, it could be your last 9 games. It could be your first start. We often want to take a season and throw it away because it may not matter to the fans, or the media might think, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. But to the people playing on the team, there's an opportunity every week to do something you've never done before, or to be part of something you've never been part of before. So I don't want to get into the mentality of everything's over and all of that. But when you've watched this team so far, who's stood out for you in a positive way? And I'm sure there's probably not a ton, but I do want to, reflect on those guys who have played well.
I mean, number one is Palmer. I mean, he has just been dynamic. I feel like we're Kentucky basketball, because I'm like, is this guy even going to stick around next year because he's playing so well? Thompson, I mean, I've been super impressed with our quarterback play in general. It just feels like there is a level of experience there that you didn't even see with a 3-4 year guy like Martinez, who's mowing down at Kansas State right now. Trey Palmer, just unbelievable athlete, always seems to run the right route, be in the right place, make the big play. Need more like him. Defensively, I really haven't seen much.
Right.
I was telling Jim Rose that the 15-year-old kid behind me goes, man, I think we'd be a lot better if we had a pass rush. And I turn around and I go, hey, can you yell that to our D coordinator? Because our biggest threats it feels like they're dropping into coverage and we're not getting any pressure. Defensively, Reimer, he's a go hard. I really like the way he plays football. Very tough guy mentality. He wants to be involved in every place, hustling. But we kind of expected that of him. I really haven't seen anything jump out on the defensive side of the ball that makes you excited. Offensively, I think we're dynamic. I think we've got talent. I'll be honest with you. When I went and watched practice, I was excited. I was texting the boys. I'm like, hey, man, these 2 guys look good. These guys look good. And I haven't even seen them. I mean, they were physical specimens, Grimes being one of them, the redshirt freshman wide receiver. Yeah. That dude was catching some balls. He was making plays. He was hustling in practice. I haven't seen him on the field. And, I don't have any kind of look behind, that's one thing. It's like, I'm friends with Barrett Ruud, friends with some of the coaches. Bill Bush is a great guy. He coached me and he's always talking to me, but I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know if these just like, yeah, he'd kill it, but we can't put him out there because he doesn't know the plays, or he doesn't hustle in practice, but he's a gamer, but we can't have that mentality. We can't put him on the field because he doesn't try and practice. I don't know any answers behind some of that stuff. I thought the practices that I witnessed were very hustle filled. Is that a word? Just dash it.
Yeah. Just any time you're in doubt, just put a hyphen between the 2 words, and you're gonna get by. That's Someone's gonna look at it and they're like, "Oh, I never knew it was like that," and it's probably not.
Think that for some work emails, But I just didn't. I saw a lot what you want to see in practices, and kind of a lot like we did under Kellen. Kellen was a great practice runner. He was too much of a pro mentality, but that was the type of stuff that I always appreciate because it was efficient. You knew what your expectations were day in and day out. And these guys, and I'm watching this practice, I'm seeing guys in practice that are looking good that haven't even gone into the game and done anything. So that was just a little bit cause of concern. But I don't have an answer for defensively who looks good. Do you? Right. No. I mean, you knew Nelson's going to be tough.
Right.
But I don't sit there going, hey, man, I'm glad that kid's a sophomore because we're going to have him for a few more years.
Right. Now, and that's just kind of the reality of the bend don't break. I mean, it just feels like if you're playing this catch kind of defense, nobody really flashes that much. And 2, I mean, for as much as we've talked about the pass rush, it really hasn't been there. Now, I will say the 2 interceptions for Marquise Buford came on nice plays. He's struggled probably more than he's flashed this year, but he's a guy that's young, that these reps are going to matter. Should he stick around or, wherever he's going to play football? I mean, he's going to be a successful player, I think, because of what he's going through right now. But I have been wanting with guys like O'Shawn Mathis and Garrett Nelson and Caleb Tanner. I mean, three veterans, three dudes that have played a lot of football. And, Nelson has had some moments. He forced one of those interceptions yesterday, but it hasn't been the same guy. And I can't believe that not having Ben Stilley and JoJo Doman and Damian Daniels and those safeties just makes that big of a difference. But I just don't know. I just don't get any sense there's real confidence from that group that they're going to go get it done. And if they're not individually confident and that unit isn't confident overall, they're just going to get steamrolled. And in the way that we've seen,
Schaefer, because you're hitting it right on the head. Going into my senior year, we lost Carricker, we lost, Jay Moore, we lost Ola, we lost a lot of talent in D-line, and it completely changed our defense. And we had good players. We had Steinkühler, we had Zach Potter. They were both good. Barry Turner was supposed to be really good, but they were just different types of players that it just didn't work for what we've repped for the last 4 years. And it turned into us getting on our heels, just like Nebraska does now. And then when they're young and they're trying, but they're trying in the wrong direction. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Step left instead. I like your step at 100%. You're just stepping the wrong way, Yeah. And you get on your heels. You know about it in life. People deal with life every single day and what they do day in, day out as a parent, as a friend, as going through their work process. So you get put on your heels a little bit. And then how do you respond to that in that situation? And like you said, Mathis, these guys should know how to respond. They should know how to turn to the guy next to them and go, hey, listen, this is what you got to do. And we're going to be just fine. And you just don't see it. It feels like every man for themselves out there.
Yeah. No, Pirates code is kind of how it feels like in these situations where I don't know what we're going to do as a team, but I got to go get mine. And what that does is guys stop doing their job. They try to do everybody else's job. And then suddenly you don't have a cohesive defense. You got a collection of individuals and you're losing to Georgia Southern.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Just in case anyone forgot.
Back in 07, like peak Corey McKeon hate level times. You really know I'm going out. I'm grading 95% on the sheet. I'm making tackles. I'm making plays. And it never did anything. It never did anything. Because if the guy next to you is grading 60%, it does not matter. And you go out and I wanted to say, hey, we support our coach, we support this team, we're gonna figure it out. And then you get on your heels and there's nothing to figure out. And the bend don't break mentality at that point goes out the window. It's just break. Yep. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised right now.
Well, there was 4 years of evidence going into this season that things hadn't gone well. And so even if you were the most hopeful Nebraska fan on the planet, which sometimes you had to at least acknowledge that for this to work, they were going to have to go against 4 years of evidence. And they changed a lot over, but transition doesn't necessarily equal success if you don't have the basis to build it off of. And they just don't have a base.
Shape, some things in life doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense. And the fact that you get a Scott Frost from the success that he had in Florida coming over here for this to work out, it just doesn't make sense. You see it and you look for, there's nothing that says that's in the past. It's just, that's in our future. And when you have that, and I think of every single Husker fan, I was one of the big ones that said, we are too impatient as a society. We're too impatient as a fan base. Give the guy 7 years and you could be happy for 20. That seems like a good trade-off for me.
Yep.
But now I'm sitting here going, geez, 20 years. You and I will be in walkers screaming at that guy on the sideline. But it just, a lot of it doesn't make sense. And for a fan base like Nebraska, who's wonderful, they're intelligent, they're loyal, and for them to be feeling like they're on their heels, just like our football team, that's not right. And it just makes you want to turn the corner. It makes you feel helpless. I was telling people, I was like, man, I feel helpless. I don't know what else to do. Do I do any more money? Do I go try to strap up for another year? I mean, I don't want to make things worse, but I don't have an answer to what I could do. Do I throw my resume at Trev Albers and say, hey, find me something to do so I can help? I'll clean bathrooms if I think that's the level of talent that I have to coach a team. But I don't like feeling that way. Nebraska as a whole deserves the best. And even a Chicagoan coming over and experience it with never experiencing Nebraska football in my life and feeling that maybe after 3 months of being on campus, I feel like we deserve success for all that we dedicate. And I want to see it. You know, I'm fine with beating Georgia Southern by 7 points to go play Oklahoma, but you got to beat them by 7 points.
Right.
Now I'm not going to sleep tonight because you got me all fired up.
Well,
we have my son's first football game today. I'm going to be screaming so loud.
Hey, at least with your son playing, you won't have to think about the Bears.
I got it. That's a big hurdle at noon. I get to switch hats right after this.
All right. I don't want to add to your misery here, but I do think that one of the things that you can provide for fans, for people like me, is perspective. What are the players going through right now on a day like this? I mean, because one of the things that makes Nebraska great is you have that fan base. They're always interested. They always care. But because they care, you always hear from them. I mean, every player can say that they don't read press clippings and they don't pay attention to it. But when you live in a state and a city that's just a giant fishbowl for its football program, it's impossible to get away. It's impossible to, you can't be on campus. You can't be downtown. You have to find a way to separate yourself from it. And that's hard to do. And you can't do it 24 hours a day. What are these players kind of going through as all of the discussions swirl about the future of the program, the future of their coaches, the future of the guys that they line up next to?
I don't know, Shape. At the end of the day, what kind of man are you? What kind of person are you? The thing I always dreaded and that Callahan was really big on is he'd break down the film the next day as a team. And if you had bad plays, he'd grind you hard. And it hurt. It hurt. Those are your friends. Those are your teammates, your brothers. And to see, getting your mistakes called out in front of him, I never wanted that. And I think the thing that I always, after a tough loss or, a game that we could have won, that we shouldn't have been in anyway, playing those top teams and you feel good about, the next day, I always wanted to be able to wake up, look in the mirror, and be ready to go again. Because at the end of the day, I'm not a quitter. At the end of the day, people are giving me their 100%, so I'm going to give them mine. You know me. I'm as cocky and arrogant as they come out there. And that's a good thing in college athletics because I wanted to go make a play. I wanted to be the one that wins the game. And, even if you're on a 3-game losing streak, you just lose this Georgia Southern, to wake up, go break down the film, get better, lick your wounds, hug your parents, hug your friends, whoever you got, and then get back at it, man. Because right now, that's the kind of mentality you have. You're after losing to Georgia Southern in a football game. Maybe it's the mentality you have as a father down the road. You have a bad day, something bad happens, you're ever turned around. It's important. It's important as a person. It's important in life, and it's certainly important to be better as a football team. This is where leadership comes in. Who's your leaders on the team? Who wants to step up? Who wants to be the guy that says, enough of this? What do we got to do to figure this out? And we need guys like that. And I don't know if we have them. If we had them, maybe we'd be winning these single point losses that ESPN just loves to remind us about.
Yep.
Maybe if we have that changes, but it's not changing. So look at yourself in the mirror, decide what kind of person you're going to be. And if you want to dedicate, you want to be there, that's going to pay dividends in your life all the way down the road. And I want to see that. What if we beat Oklahoma bad next week? I mean,
look, they were up 7-3 against Kent State at halftime. College football, as you said, is turned on its head right now.
Yeah, but we'd be more bipolar than a lot of my ex-girlfriends, So I want to see it. I want to see if we can turn around. I want to see if we could do it.
Yeah. Was this therapeutic for you?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I'm worried it went the other way. I'm going to have to check on you in a few hours and just see how you're doing.
Knock twice. If I knock back, I'm okay. Leave me alone. Yeah, sports life ain't going that great right now. I'm hoping my son's team today turns it around. I have a little bit more faith in the world, but I got to get through the Bears game against the 49ers first, and that one's going to be a little tough too. Come on, Justin Fields.
Let's end this on a high note. I'd like you to tell the story about your son meeting Eric Crouch.
Oh man. So my son, he's a mini me, but like more intelligent, which isn't hard. But he came to practice. I took him and my nephew to practice, and they were very blown away and very impressed. And they play on the same football team together, and they had a great time. And Eric Crouch is there. I've known Crouch a long time, so I was talking with him and Matt Davidson, and I was explaining to my son as Eric Crouch walked by, I go, there's a trophy called the Heisman Trophy, and it is the most prestigious award in college football. And I'm like, Odin, if you could do that, you'd be the best player. And that guy has one. He's a quarterback. And he turns around and looks at me and looks at Crouch, goes, yeah, but I could throw it farther than him. I go, well, then it shouldn't be tough for you to get the trophy, brother. I don't know what to tell you.
And that's how you knew he's your son.
That's how you know he's my son. And that's how I know today's game is going to be a little less stressful than the one I watched last night. So,
man. Well, hey, appreciate you taking the time joining us here on a Sunday morning, walking through all of this. If you're up for it, perhaps we'll do it again here this season. Corey,
whatever you want, buddy. Your funeral.
All right, everyone. Be sure to check out Husker247.com. We got plenty of coverage from last night's game, plenty of coverage looking ahead about what's next. Of course, there's recruiting going on, and Nebraska does play Oklahoma next Saturday. That game did not get canceled. I can confirm. They will be playing 11 a.m. Oklahoma is still coming up here, and Nebraska still has to field a team. So that's going to happen. We're going to cover it. Be sure to check out Husker 24/7. Appreciate everybody for listening, and we'll be back with some more podcasts next week.